We're an early years service that look at assessing the needs of children before they take their next step onto education of a specialist nature. The children that we have that come here are of complex needs, severe learning difficulties, profound and multiple learning difficulties. We work with a multitude of professionals here: physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, and we adopt a multi-agency working approach to support the needs of the children that are here. We're looking a little deeper into what children do. We're looking not only at the can and the can't do of traditional assessment processes, but looking at how we can show what they can do, how we can look differently, enrich our assessment process, enrich our report writing by adding additional layers, looking at exactly what these behaviours look like, what shows us that they're engaged, and that builds a bigger, deeper profile and an ever-changing profile. We noticed in the main playroom that Ella was forever collecting the giraffes in particular from the drawers where the animal objects are kept, and so we decided to encourage Ella to partake in more sensory activities, that we would incorporate that motivator somewhere she'd always head straight to. So we're trying to use that to engage her in a wider range of activities to broaden her experience while she's here. Pop, pop. More. Good girl. Good girl. Keep going. Good girl. Oh. Well done. Some more. Scales of engagement means that we can work on persistence, which was shown by Ella in the sensory room. She's quite persistent in completing the game again and again. The initial initiation was from myself, and so we would expect Ella to eventually move on to initiate that game, but for now we're quite happy to initiate it and appreciate the persistence and then come back round again to work on that skill in isolation. Usually we look for the positive aspects of assessment and we look at what children can do, what children enjoy and what motivates them. The engagement scales allow us to also appreciate the negative behaviours. When children are upset, it does often mean that they are engaged and they understand what it is that we're doing, and sometimes the crying and the negative behaviours are the only way they can tell us that that's not what they want to do. You're not ready? Oh, is that better? I'll get you ready to work. Yeah? Yeah. That's better. Good job. After building a baseline profile for Logan, it was easy to see that his anxieties can be quite high at times. Logan's learnt that we will respond to him if he offers his hands and initiates that he would like to be calmed. He enjoys having his arms and his hands massaged, and he will initiate that independently. When Logan is ready to learn, he's ready to engage in activities, his vocalisation's changed, or he will offer his body parts or even lift his top to have his tummy rubbed in order to settle him and be ready, and then he's more responsive to the engagement within the activities in the setting. A traditional assessment is what happened there at a particular point. The engagement scales show us an overall picture and a movable picture that moves and grows with the child. This is an assessment setting and long-term education provision will be elsewhere. It's important to gather information like that about children within our setting in order to hand that over to new staff, so staff don't have to relearn all the rich information that we've gathered through using scales of engagement.
We are producing a pack that is coming from their previous setting. We're able to share from a single app that all of this information is housed there. We are not relying on a number of different systems to show the evidence we're trying to gather. This has collected everything. We can sort of edit and amend any comments or scores that we would like to based on the moderation and in real time. And it's just given us that flexibility that we have one system to use. We already have a baseline of what it is that motivates them, that shows when they're engaged or when they are disengaged, and it does mean that staff in that first term are getting to know the pupils but also have that introduction, so they're not having to relearn or rediscover what this looks like for a child.
There are times in the early intervention phase when we need to move children on from that work into more formal educational settings. That's probably one of the first transitions for a child. Transitions for any of us at any point in our lives can be scary things. What we found in practice is that having a good profile of learning generated from the engagement profile and scale actually gives us such high quality information, gives educators in the two parallel settings such high quality information that they can plan efficient, effective and meaningful transitions. We know from experience that at those points of transition many children can regress, can lose learning gains that they had made in their former settings. We're witnessing at the moment a very great change in how we manage that through focusing on engagement rather always than sort of tick lists with specified achievements on for a child.
From other services, they might give us the profile of all the 7 areas, and that gives us terminology that we all understand that can feed into our reports, our provision, how we can it might be little things that how we need to set the classroom up for that child, because that's the best way that they engage. As a teacher, I'm constantly asking myself, how do we engage children, how do we engage individual children? So we're like looking for a lens to home in on their engagement and how they engage in different aspects of their learning. The switch is broken! Yeah, good boy!
We can measure progress now in a different way. It's our personal progress. We're not comparing any child against another child. We're comparing that individual journey from a starting point, setting their educational health and care plan over half term, termly, annual targets, annual review targets, and then up to their end of key stage targets, which the local authority and parents are using us to track with.
We've used evidence for learning to put all of our pathways on, so each child is assigned to a pathway, and they've also got a personal learning goal, which for us is at their 4 outcomes from their educational healthcare plan. So we've drawn all that together on the app, so each piece of work we can relate back to the pathways, the curriculum pathways, and also their educational healthcare plan outcomes. So this is a personal learning goal for our school. It's the educational healthcare plan. So we've got the 4 areas of need, and under each area of need we've got a main key stage outcome, and then under the outcomes we've got little steps towards that outcome. These are all very personal to each individual, so it's great to store them all in one place and to see the judgments over time. So when we come to assess these little statements, we can view the work that's been stored on the app. We can see progress over time and also see both EHCP links, so our personal learning goals, as well as our curriculum links. And we can set a judgment against all of the curriculum statements. These are our progress steps. So we've got refusal, attention, engagement, developing, secure and generalised. So we can give them a score. However, at the moment we're using the generalised only if a multi-professional has seen it or if parents have sent something back in to show us actually that skill is generalised across a variety of different environments and settings. So this clearly shows progress over time, which will be great to show an external visitor of how progress has been shown across a lot of different areas. We can also show the amount of input and what kind of support children have had whilst being assessed and videoed.
We offer 3 different sorts of styles of classrooms because that better suits the needs of our learners. So we have a structured, a focused and a sensory group because that allows us to think about a child's preferred learning style. It's not an ability, it's the way they want to engage with the curriculum. We're all different, we all have particular talents, and that way we can try and direct a style of teaching, a style of learning that's personalised to the children. That helps us embed that when we use the app.
So these are her 4 outcomes. So I can select statements that are demonstrated within this evidence. So the grey dots show where work is already stored on the app, where we've got evidence towards that outcome, that step. So we know where the gaps are if we need to focus on a particular skill or aspect. We can also add links to our curriculum statements, which again the dots show where the work is already stored. So here are all the links that this piece of work reflects. Under tags, this is great for especially senior leaders who can pull everything off. You can add as many links and tags as you'd like. Our verbal assist, we can do a little bit of moderation within school of how different levels of support are portrayed in early years all the way to 6th form. We can also track it back to engagement for learning.
We need to be on board with the generation of parents and people who've been here like me for a long time are doing things, you know, the old-fashioned ways, lots of homeschool diaries, lots of contact by phone, but parents are living from a different world. We need to catch up with them, we need to follow that accessibility.
We've piloted a group of parents who are really keen to see what we've been up to in school and to view the videos. They can view the videos and the comment section, and we hope for them to eventually send us pictures and videos back so we can set homework through it, we can see how learning in school is transferred and generalised outside school.
It's nice to see all their video clips and all their achievements they've done, so I've got so much paperwork from the children. So I do find it easiest having it all there in my hands. I can easily just log in and see everything.
I know he loves bubbles, doesn't he?
He does.
So we're just trying to use something that's really motivating for him to use a communication aid, which is the more switch, to press it and to say, actually, yes, please, I'd like some more bubbles. He's pressing it and he knows that actually he's anticipating that, yes, I'm going to get those bubbles. And he'll track them, pop them, look at them. He's so curious seeing the bubbles around him, trying to pop them and looking at them.
I think it's been fantastic. I mean, we get the homeschool diaries, the teachers writing it every single day, but sometimes it's hard to picture your child actually doing it. So to get the videos home where you can actually see and you can share it with your family. So it's not just us as parents that are seeing the progression when we come into school for the parents' evening, but I can actually go to his nan and his granddad and say, look, this is what he's doing in school and how much progress he's making. So it's absolutely brilliant.
This time last year, we were thinking about outcomes all the time. Why haven't you got a great outcome? Or if you have got a great outcome, why? Now, it's not about outcomes at all. It's about inputting to children. What are we doing for teaching? What are we doing for learning that allows actually that young person to do the best that they can?
Looking at the video of Violet, as someone who doesn't know Violet well, what do you see?
When you first go into the ball pool with Violet, she very quickly becomes engaged. She finds one fish and then another fish, and then you use sign to show her that they're the same. She signs fish. So you get lots of good interaction. She's curious, she's discovering, you're naming, and you're co-constructing the experience with her. You're modelling, you're hoping that will engage her. She gives you partial engagement, and then she pulls away from you again. She disengages. For safety reasons, you need to bring her back within the parameters of the ball pool. You try to encourage her to go back to some earlier learning, which was to find the fish, which we know she's successfully done. But what I was really fascinated by is often we focus just on how the child is learning, how they're engaging, But actually I saw how a teacher engages, and just by keeping in your mind, how does this child engage as your central focus? How do I as the teacher engage this child as your central focus? You went from engaged to disengaged to re-engaged to full engagement. It was just a brilliant piece of teaching.
It's obviously really hard to communicate to stakeholders what a child's progress looks like. You're not comparing children against others, you're comparing them against their individual journey over time. And what the app has been able to do is bring that alive, because we've been able to show individual children's journeys. So we might be able to say look after our looked after children, and be able to say actually this is a snapshot of what's been happening to our looked after children. That's why we think their progress is good. So there's a story there which the data is much harder to tell. It's not personal enough. This engages you.